Always have mucus in your throat. After 60, this 1930s. Kitchen remedy clears it overnight. You know that feeling. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you do, before your feet even hit the floor, is clear your throat. That thick, sticky feeling sitting right at the back, like something is lodged there that won't move. You cough, you hack, you swallow hard. And for a few seconds it feels like it's gone, but 10 minutes later, there it is again. You're talking to your daughter on the phone and you have to stop mid-sentence. You're in church trying not to be the person making that noise. You carry a tissue everywhere you go now. And the worst part? You've been to the doctor, maybe more than once, and they said your lungs are fine, your chest x-ray is clear, maybe it's allergies or acid reflux. Here's a prescription. But it doesn't go away. It hasn't gone away in months, maybe years, and you're starting to think this is just what life sounds like after 60. Well, I need you to hear me on this. My name is Margaret, and I've spent over 2 decades researching the connection between what we eat and how our bodies respond, especially as we age. And I can tell you that this constant mucus, this throat coating that never seems to clear, is not just an annoyance. It is your body sending you a signal. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to explain exactly what that signal means, what's actually causing it at a cellular level, and then I'm going to walk you through a series of remedies that come straight from Depression-era kitchens, Appalachian medicine cabinets, and the wisdom of grandmothers who never had a medical degree, but somehow knew exactly what to do when someone in the family couldn't stop clearing their throat. Some of these you already have in your pantry right now. And one of them, the one from the 1930s that I mentioned in the title, is so simple and so effective that I genuinely don't understand why more people aren't talking about it. Before we get into it, I want to ask you something. If you've been dealing with this, I want to know how long. Drop a comment right now and just tell me, how many months or years have you been living with this constant throat mucus? I read every single comment. And the reason I ask is because the answers help me understand what topics to cover next. And while you're down there, if you haven't subscribed yet, now would be a wonderful time. I put out videos like this every week, and I don't want you to miss the one that might change the way you feel every single morning. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you get notified. Now let me explain what's actually happening in your throat, because once you understand the mechanism, everything else I'm about to tell you is going to make perfect sense. Your body produces mucus on purpose. It's not a mistake. Your mucous membranes, which line your throat, your sinuses, your stomach, your intestines, they produce this slippery layer as a defense system. It traps dust, bacteria, viruses, allergens, all the tiny invaders that you breathe in every single day. In a healthy system, this mucus is thin, watery, and it moves, it flows. Your body makes it, uses it, and clears it without you even noticing. But after 60, several things start to shift. First, the mucus itself changes consistency. It gets thicker, stickier, more like paste than water. Second, the tiny hair-like structures in your throat called cilia, which are supposed to sweep the mucus upward and out, they slow down. They get sluggish. Some of them stop working altogether. So now you have thicker mucus and a weaker clearance system. That's why it sits there. But here's the part your doctor probably didn't have time to explain. In most cases, the reason the mucus thickened in the first place has nothing to do with your lungs or your sinuses. It has to do with chronic low-grade inflammation, silent inflammation. The kind that doesn't show up on a standard blood test unless someone specifically looks for markers like C-reactive protein or interleukin-6. This inflammation can come from a dozen different sources: processed food, excess sugar, poor gut health, undiagnosed food sensitivities, even chronic dehydration. And when your body is in a constant low-level inflammatory state, it does what it's designed to do. It produces more mucus, thicker mucus, everywhere: your throat, your sinuses, your digestive tract. It's a defense response to a threat your body perceives, but you can't see. And then there's the acid reflux connection, which is the one most doctors mention but rarely explain fully. There's a condition called laryngopharyngeal reflux, or LPR, which is different from regular heartburn. With LPR, stomach acid rises all the way up to the back of your throat, especially at night while you're lying down, and it irritates the tissue there. Your throat responds by producing a thick coat of mucus to protect itself from the acid. You wake up with that glob in your throat, not because you're sick, but because your throat spent the entire night defending itself. And it's not just acid. Pepsin, a digestive enzyme, can actually become embedded in your throat tissue and reactivate every time you eat something acidic, creating a cycle of irritation and mucus production that feels endless. So the real solution isn't just suppressing the mucus, it's addressing the inflammation, supporting the cilia, improving digestive function, and calming the tissue that's been under siege. And that's exactly what these kitchen remedies do. They don't mask the symptom, they work on the root. The first remedy is raw apple cider vinegar, and before you roll your eyes because you've heard this one a million times, let me tell you why the way most people use it is completely wrong. Apple cider vinegar works for throat mucus not because it's acidic, but because of something called the acetic acid paradox. When you consume a small amount of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar, the acetic acid actually promotes an alkaline response in the body once it's metabolized. This helps reduce the systemic inflammation that's driving excess mucus production. But here's the critical part: the mother. That cloudy, stringy mass floating at the bottom of the bottle. That's a colony of beneficial bacteria and enzymes, and it's the reason this works. Pasteurized, clear apple cider vinegar from the regular grocery shelf does almost nothing for this purpose. You need the raw kind with the mother intact. Your great-grandmother in 1935 didn't call it a probiotic. She called it vinegar tonic. She kept a jug of it on the back porch, made from her own apple scraps, and every morning she'd mix a splash into warm water and drink it before breakfast. Appalachian families did this religiously. It was as common as brushing your teeth. The way to use it is 1 tablespoon in 8 ounces of warm, not hot, water, first thing in the morning, 20 minutes before you eat anything. Sip it through a straw if you're concerned about your tooth enamel. Do this every morning for 2 weeks and pay attention to what happens to that morning throat clearing. The second remedy is something your grandmother probably made when anyone in the family had a cold, and it's bone broth, real bone broth. Not the stuff in a carton at the store, although that's better than nothing. I'm talking about the kind that simmers for 18 to 24 hours on the back of the stove, the kind where the bones break down and release their collagen and minerals into the liquid, and when you put it in the refrigerator it turns into jelly. That jelly is gelatin, and gelatin is one of the most powerful gut-healing substances we know of. Remember what I said about inflammation driving mucus production? A huge percentage of that inflammation originates in the gut. When the lining of your intestines is compromised, a condition researchers call intestinal permeability or leaky gut, partially digested food particles and bacterial toxins slip through into your bloodstream, and your immune system responds with inflammation everywhere, including your throat. Gelatin from bone broth helps seal those gaps. It strengthens the mucosal lining of the entire digestive tract. A study from the University of Nebraska Medical Center showed that chicken bone broth had a measurable anti-inflammatory effect on upper respiratory tissue, specifically reducing the migration of neutrophils, which are immune cells that drive mucus production when they accumulate. The old wives weren't guessing. They were right. Have 1 cup of warm bone broth every evening, about an hour before bed. This also helps with the LPR issue because it coats and soothes the esophageal tissue before you lie down. The third remedy is one I want you to pay special attention to, because this is the 1930s kitchen remedy I mentioned in the title, and it's so simple that people dismiss it. It's a warm, salt water gargle made with a specific addition, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. During the Great Depression, families couldn't afford medicine. When someone had persistent throat congestion, the remedy that got passed around from household to household, from mother to daughter, from neighbor to neighbor, was this: 1 cup of warm water, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. You gargle for 30 seconds, spit, and repeat 3 times. The salt works as a natural osmotic agent. It draws water out of the swollen throat tissue through a process called osmosis, which thins the mucus and reduces the swelling that's trapping it there. The baking soda does something different and equally important. It shifts the pH of the throat surface to a slightly alkaline state, which neutralizes the pepsin that may be embedded in the tissue from acid reflux. Remember, pepsin reactivates in an acidic environment. The baking soda deactivates it. Research published in JAMA Otolaryngology found that alkaline water and alkaline rinses were effective at denaturing pepsin in throat tissue. That's exactly what this old remedy does. Do this gargle twice a day, once in the morning and once before bed. You'll likely notice a difference within 3 days. The mucus doesn't just thin out, it stops being produced at the same rate because you've removed one of the triggers. Now the fourth remedy is ginger, but not ginger tea from a bag, fresh ginger root. Ginger contains two powerhouse anti-inflammatory agents, gingerols and shogaols. Gingerols are present in fresh ginger. Shogaols form when ginger is dried or heated, and they're actually more potent. Research has shown that 6-shogaol inhibits the NF-κB inflammatory pathway, one of the master switches for systemic inflammation. But ginger also does something specific to mucus. It contains a proteolytic enzyme called zingiberine that breaks down mucus proteins. It's a natural mucolytic. It dissolves the stuff. Farm families in the 1940s would keep a knob of ginger root in the pantry and grate it directly into hot water with honey when anyone had chest or throat congestion. Here's the preparation. Take a 2-inch piece of fresh ginger root, slice it thin, simmer it in 2 cups of water for 15 minutes with a lid on, strain it, add 1 teaspoon of raw honey and a squeeze of half a lemon. Drink this twice a day, warm but not scalding. The fifth remedy is going to surprise you because most people associate it with cooking, not with clearing mucus. It's turmeric combined with black pepper and a fat source. Curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, is one of the most studied, natural anti-inflammatory compounds in the world. A meta-analysis in the Journal of Clinical Medicine reviewed over 15 randomized controlled trials and found that curcumin significantly reduced C-reactive protein, one of the primary markers of chronic inflammation. But curcumin by itself has terrible bioavailability. Your body can barely absorb it. That's where piperine comes in. Piperine is the active compound in black pepper, and research has shown it increases the bioavailability of curcumin by 2,000%. 2,000. And you need a fat source because curcumin is fat soluble. Here's the preparation. Warm 1 cup of whole milk or coconut milk, add half a teaspoon of ground turmeric, a generous pinch of fresh ground black pepper, and half a teaspoon of coconut oil or ghee. Drink it about 30 minutes before bed. This is golden milk, and variations of it have been used in Ayurvedic medicine for over 4,000 years. In my experience, people who add this to their evening routine notice a significant reduction in morning throat mucus within about 10 days. The sixth remedy is one most people have heard of, but almost nobody uses correctly: steam inhalation with eucalyptus. Your grandmother probably did this with a pot of boiling water and a towel over her head. She was on to something. The steam increases the beat frequency of those cilia I mentioned earlier, the tiny hairs that sweep mucus upward and out. Heat literally wakes them up. When you add eucalyptus oil, you get an additional effect. Eucalyptol, the primary compound in eucalyptus, stimulates mucus to become thinner and more watery, making it easier for the cilia to move it. The right way: boil a pot of water, remove it from heat, add 3 to 4 drops of pure eucalyptus essential oil, drape a towel over your head, close your eyes, and breathe the steam for 8 to 10 minutes. Do this once a day, preferably in the evening. Keep your face at least 12 inches from the water. If you have asthma, check with your doctor first, because eucalyptus can sometimes trigger bronchospasm in sensitive individuals. I want to pause here for a moment. If what I'm sharing is resonating with you, if you're someone who has been dealing with this throat mucus issue and you feel like you finally understand why it's happening, I want you to hit that like button right now. Not for me, although I appreciate it, but because when you like the video, the algorithm shows it to more people who are dealing with the same thing. And there might be someone out there right now, right this minute, who needs to hear this. Your like might be the reason they find it. The seventh remedy is the one that surprised me the most in my research for this video, and it's pineapple. Specifically, the enzyme bromelain, which is found in the stem and core of the pineapple, the parts most people throw away. Bromelain is a powerful proteolytic enzyme, meaning it breaks down proteins. Mucus is primarily composed of glycoproteins called mucins, and bromelain has been shown to break these apart, effectively dissolving thick, sticky mucus. A study published in the journal Laryngoscope found that bromelain supplementation significantly reduced the duration of sinusitis symptoms and nasal mucus production compared to standard therapy alone. But eating a slice of pineapple from a can isn't going to do it. The bromelain concentration in the sweet flesh is relatively low. It's concentrated in the core. So here's what I recommend. Buy a fresh pineapple, cut the core into chunks, and blend it into a smoothie with some coconut water and a handful of spinach. Or if you prefer, you can take a bromelain supplement, 500 milligrams, taken on an empty stomach between meals. When you take it with food, it acts as a digestive enzyme. When you take it on an empty stomach, it enters the bloodstream and acts as a systemic, anti-inflammatory, and mucolytic. That distinction matters. The eighth remedy goes back to the gut connection, and it's fermented foods, specifically sauerkraut, real fermented sauerkraut, not the pasteurized kind sitting in vinegar on the regular grocery shelf. Real lacto-fermented sauerkraut is alive with billions of lactobacillus bacteria. These beneficial microbes colonize your gut and directly modulate your immune response. Remember, about 70% of your immune system lives in your gut. When the gut microbiome is out of balance, a condition called dysbiosis, the immune system becomes hyperreactive. It starts producing inflammation where there shouldn't be any, including in the mucous membranes of your throat. A study from the University of Otago in New Zealand found that regular consumption of fermented foods reduced markers of systemic inflammation, including interleukin-6 and C-reactive protein. German and Eastern European families have known this for centuries. Every farmhouse had a crock of sauerkraut fermenting in the cellar. It wasn't a trend, it was survival food that happened to be medicine. Start with 1 to 2 tablespoons per day and work up to a quarter cup. Eat it cold, never heated, because heat kills the bacteria. Add it to the side of your lunch or dinner. You can also use kimchi, kombucha, or plain kefir if sauerkraut isn't to your taste. The ninth remedy is honey and black seed oil, and this is a combination that has been used in Middle Eastern and North African traditional medicine for over 1,000 years. Black seed oil, pressed from Nigella sativa seeds, contains a compound called thymoquinone that has been extensively studied for its anti-inflammatory, antihistamine, and bronchodilatory properties. A review published in the journal Phytotherapy Research analyzed over 20 studies and found that thymoquinone modulates multiple inflammatory pathways, including COX2 and the NF-κB pathway. What this means in practical terms is that black seed oil can reduce the inflammatory signaling that tells your throat to produce excess mucus. When combined with raw honey, which has its own antibacterial and tissue-soothing properties, you get a remedy that works on multiple levels simultaneously. The preparation is simple. 1 teaspoon of raw honey mixed with half a teaspoon of cold-pressed black seed oil, taken once in the morning and once before bed. Let it slide slowly down the back of your throat. Don't wash it down with water immediately. Let it coat the tissue for a minute or two. The taste takes some getting used to. Black seed oil has a strong, peppery, slightly bitter flavor, but the effect on throat mucus, particularly when combined with the other remedies I've mentioned, can be remarkable. The 10th remedy sounds too basic, but the most basic advice is often the most ignored. It's proper hydration with a twist. Most people over 60 are chronically dehydrated and don't know it. The thirst mechanism weakens with age. You can be significantly dehydrated and not feel thirsty at all. And when you're dehydrated, your body conserves water by making mucus thicker, much thicker. Less water in, thicker mucus out. But it's not just about how much you drink, it's about what you drink it with. Adding a small pinch of unrefined sea salt and a squeeze of lemon to your water dramatically improves absorption at the cellular level. The trace minerals in sea salt, particularly sodium, potassium, and magnesium, help pull the water into your cells rather than having it pass straight through. Aim for half your body weight in ounces per day. If you weigh 160 pounds, drink 80 ounces and spread it throughout the day. Small sips is how your cells actually absorb it. Now, the 11th and final remedy is the one I want to close the list with because it addresses the acid reflux component directly, and for many people over 60, this is the primary driver of the whole problem. It's aloe vera juice, but specifically the inner fillet, decolorized kind, not the whole leaf preparation. The inner gel of the aloe vera plant contains compounds called polysaccharides, particularly acemannan, that form a soothing, protective layer over irritated mucous membranes. A study published in the Journal of Traditional Chinese Medicine found that aloe vera syrup was as effective as omeprazole, a standard acid reflux medication, in reducing reflux symptoms over a 4-week period. That's a remarkable finding. Aloe vera also has a mild alkalizing effect, which helps neutralize the pepsin sitting in your throat tissue. And it promotes the growth of beneficial gut bacteria, tying back into the gut inflammation connection I've been talking about. Take 2 ounces of inner fillet aloe vera juice, about a quarter cup, 20 minutes before your 2 largest meals. Make sure it says inner fillet or decolorized on the label because whole leaf aloe vera contains aloan, a compound that has a strong laxative effect and can cause cramping. You don't want that. You want the gentle, soothing inner gel only. Now, I want to tell you about a woman named Dorothy. Dorothy is 73 years old, retired school teacher from rural Ohio. She came across information like this about 2 years ago, and at that point, she'd been dealing with constant throat mucus for almost 5 years. She'd been to an ENT, an allergist, and her primary care doctor. She'd tried nasal sprays, antihistamines, proton pump inhibitors, and 2 different rounds of antibiotics. Nothing worked for more than a week or 2. The mucus always came back. Her husband told me she was embarrassed to go to restaurants because she'd spend half the dinner clearing her throat. She stopped singing in her church choir, something she'd done for 30 years, because she couldn't get through a hymn without that thickness catching in her throat. When she started making changes, she didn't do everything at once. She started with just 3 things: the warm salt and baking soda gargle morning and night, a cup of real bone broth every evening, and the apple cider vinegar tonic every morning. After about 5 days, she told me the morning mucus was noticeably thinner. After 2 weeks, she added the golden milk before bed and started eating a couple tablespoons of sauerkraut with dinner. By the end of the first month, she said the constant throat clearing had reduced by what she estimated was about 70%. By 6 weeks, she was back in the choir. She didn't say it was gone completely. Some mornings are still worse than others, especially when the weather changes, or she eats something particularly inflammatory like pizza or ice cream. But the constant, debilitating, embarrassing glob in her throat that had defined her daily life for 5 years was, in her words, manageable for the first time in forever. And the thing that mattered most to her was that she did it working alongside her doctor, who was monitoring her reflux medication and actually reduced her dose of omeprazole once her symptoms improved. Now I need to say something important before we wrap up. If you are taking any prescription medication, especially blood thinners like warfarin, blood pressure medications, diabetes medications, or proton pump inhibitors, do not stop or change your medication based on this video. Some of these remedies, particularly ginger, turmeric, and black seed oil, can interact with blood thinners and blood pressure medication. Bromelain can amplify the effects of certain antibiotics. Apple cider vinegar can affect potassium levels in people taking diuretics. These natural remedies are powerful, and powerful means they can interact with pharmaceutical drugs in ways that matter. Talk to your doctor. Bring this list. Show them what you want to try. Any good doctor will work with you on this. Here's what I want you to take away from everything I've shared today. All 11 of these remedies work on the same underlying principles. They thin the mucus, they wake up the cilia, they reduce the chronic inflammation that's driving overproduction, and they calm the irritated tissue that's been under attack from acid reflux. That's it. 4 mechanisms. Every remedy on this list targets at least one of them, and most target 2 or 3 simultaneously. Your body isn't broken, it's responding logically to conditions that can be changed. The mucus is a message, and once you address what's causing it, the message stops. So here's what I want you to do starting tonight. First, go to your pantry and see if you have apple cider vinegar. If it's the raw kind with the mother, you're set for tomorrow morning. If not, pick some up. Second, do the salt and baking soda gargle tonight before bed. You already have everything you need for that. Half a teaspoon of salt, a quarter teaspoon of baking soda, 1 cup of warm water. It takes 2 minutes. Third, drink 1 extra glass of water before bed tonight, with a tiny pinch of sea salt if you have it. Tomorrow, start tracking your water intake. Fourth, look at what you're eating for dinner tonight and ask yourself honestly if it's inflammatory. If it's fried, processed, loaded with sugar, or dairy heavy, consider swapping one element for something that's going to help rather than hurt. And fifth, make an appointment with your doctor to discuss what you're experiencing and what you'd like to try. Bring this information with you. Be your own advocate. Nobody is going to care about your health more than you do. In my next video, I'm going to cover something that is directly connected to what we talked about today, and I've been getting dozens of questions about it. It's about the hidden connection between gut health and chronic sinus problems after 60, and specifically the 4 foods that are destroying your sinus lining without you ever suspecting them. One of them is something that most health experts actually recommend, and when I show you the research, I think you're going to be shocked. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I genuinely appreciate it. If this video helped you understand something you didn't understand before, share it with someone who needs it. A friend, a sister, a neighbor from church who's always clearing her throat. Sometimes the right information at the right time changes everything. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.